रजत सर।
या मैम स्टार्ट करें मैम।
वीडियो स्टार्ट नहीं कर सकते बिकॉज होस्ट ने एनिमल करके रखा है।
सर, राहुल सर। राहुल सर।
हाँ बोल ना रजत।
मैम का वीडियो ऑन नहीं हो रहा सर।
वीडियो नहीं है।
हाँ, वीडियो होस्ट ने एनेबल करके रखा है, बोल रहा है सेटिंग्स में शायद से चेंज करना पड़ेगा।
मैं एक मिनट। अभी ट्राई करो।
हाँ, अभी हो रहा है। यस, आ रहा है अभी।
मैम करें स्टार्ट।
हाँ, स्टार्ट करते हैं।
ओके मैम। नमस्कार वैद्यगण, मैं वैद्य रजत गोयल। एक सेकंड जस्ट ना।
हम्म। Shift, shift.
एम आई क्लियरली ऑडिबल?
यस।
ओके मैम। नमस्कार वैद्यगण, मैं वैद्य रजत गोयल आपका आप सबका आज से शुरू होने वाली लेक्चर सीरीज ट्रीटिंग शोल्डर जॉइंट एट ओपीडी लेवल में स्वागत करता हूं। इसे शुरू करने से पहले मैं आप सभी का धन्यवाद करना चाहता हूं कि आप सभी ने एक अच्छा और बिल्कुल अलग रास्ता चूज किया है, जो कि स्पेशलिटी का है। इस लेक्चर सीरीज के एडवर्टाइजमेंट के दौरान कुछ क्वेश्चंस थे स्टूडेंट्स और प्रैक्टिशनर के कि सर शोल्डर जॉइंट तो ऐसे ही ट्रीट कर लेते हैं, कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है, इस कोर्स को करने से क्या ही होगा। तो मैं आप सबको बताना चाहूंगा कि ठीक आप 10 में से 8 भी हो जाते होंगे, पर दुख हमेशा वो 2 देकर जाते हैं जो ठीक नहीं हुए। तो हमारी कोशिश इस लेक्चर सीरीज के थ्रू या हर लेक्चर सीरीज जो अभी तक हमने वैद्य हेतल कर मैम के साथ की हैं, लाइक नी जॉइंट ए टू जेड, नी जॉइंट दी एंड, शोल्डर जॉइंट, और नाउ ट्रीटिंग शोल्डर जॉइंट एट ओपीडी लेवल, कि आप 10 के 10 पेशेंट को कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ ट्रीट करें। आपको एक्सपेरिमेंट नहीं करना है। आप जो युक्ति लगाएं वो कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ हो। आपका ज्यादा समय ना लेते हुए मैं आज की वक्ता से आपका परिचय कराना चाहूंगा। मैम, हमारी आज की वक्ता वैद्य हेतल करकर जी हैं। मैम पिछले 15 सालों से मुंबई में आयुर्वेदिक ऑर्थोपेडिक चिकित्सक के रूप में चिकित्सा सेवाएं दे रही हैं। मैम ओम आयुर्वालय कंप्लीट केरलीय ऑर्थोपेडिक सेंटर मुंबई में चीफ फिजिशियन एंड फाउंडर के रूप में कार्यरत हैं। मैम ने अस्थि चिकित्सा का ज्ञान जाने माने अस्थि चिकित्सक श्री सी सुरेश कुमार सर केला से लिया है। मैम मुख्यतः स्पोर्ट्स इंजरी एंड अवॉइड सर्जरी in various orthopedic problems like slip disc, ligament tear, meniscal tear इत्यादि ट्रीट करती हैं। आप लोगों का ज्यादा समय न लेते हुए मैं आज के विषय से आपको अवगत कराना चाहूंगा। हमारा आज का विषय कॉमन शोल्डर पैथोलॉजीज है। मैम इस विषय पर अपना मजबूत पक्ष हमारे साथ साझा करेंगी। मैं आप सभी से रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहता हूं कि आप सभी मैम की हर बात को ध्यान से सुने। धन्यवाद मैम, आप शुरू कर सकते हैं। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Dr. Rajat, for a warm welcome and introduction. And I would like to thank all the participants कि आज संडे भी आप टाइम निकाल के ये लेक्चर ऑनलाइन अटेंड करने के लिए आए रजिस्टर किया है. And one more thing that see it's like upgradation of your knowledge, upgrading your knowledge, upgrading it by attending this lecture. You are increasing your knowledge. At the same time, it is also helping me to increase my knowledge, because when I have to present or I have to share my experience, I do need to revise some books. Yes, of course, with the practice and with the book knowledge we get perfection, because we are supposed to फॉलो टू और अचीव अ परफेक्शन. सक्सेस अपने आप पीछे आ जाती है. फेमस डायलॉग सबने सुना ही रहेगा. थ्री इडियट मूवी का फेमस डायलॉग है कि सक्सेस के पीछे मत भागो, परफेक्शन के पीछे लगो, तो सक्सेस जख मार के तुम्हारे पीछे आएगी. दिस इज व्हाट वी हैव सीन almost every participants might have seen this Three Idiot movie, right? So today's topic is common shoulder pathologies and management. So let's start with one insight or one thought that why we have selected a shoulder joint. Because most of the time when we see a practitioners, it's not just I'm talking about Ayurveda practitioners, but any other practitioners also, it's a common belief with the doctor and even with a patient that whenever there is a shoulder joint pain, patient comes to us with the diagnosis, doctor, I have a frozen shoulder. And when patients are telling that ki doctor, I have a frozen shoulder, there is a tendency like we think, okay, of course, shayad ye frozen shoulder hi hai, and we start thinking towards that side ki okay, frozen shoulder hai, hame frozen shoulder ki treatment karni hai, theek hai. But why I am insisting over here is like in not all the shoulder pain is a frozen shoulder. And of course, introduction mein Dr. Rajat himself has introduced that ki uh, हमें 10 में से 8 पेशेंट में रिजल्ट मिल जाता है, बट वी आर नॉट एबल टू गिव अ सक्सेसफुल रिजल्ट टू टू रिमेनिंग पेशेंट, एंड दैट कीप्स ऑन पिंचिंग that why we fail to give result, what, where am I lacking? So here also when we say that कि not all the shoulder pain is a frozen shoulder, what do I mean is आपको शायद 10 में से 8 पेशेंट में आप एक्सरसाइज दोगे और उनका पेन, उनकी रेंजेस इंप्रूव होना चालू हो जाएगी और उनमें रिजल्ट भी मिलना चालू हो जाएगा एक्टिविटीज जब आप एडवाइस करोगे तब. बट इन सर्टन केसेस ऑफ द शोल्डर जॉइंट, इफ यू हैव advised to do exercises, then they will complain that ki after exercising my pain has increased. Then there is a alarming sign, or it starts pointing in your mind that okay, what was wrong in my diagnosis? If it is a frozen shoulder, so what is the difference? Now other frozen shoulder, when I am telling them to do hot fermentation, or if I'm telling them to do exercises, that is improving. But this case, this kind of a cases has not improved. So that is an indication that okay, we should be always thinking about the understanding about our diagnosis of the shoulder pain, and then only go towards the treatment. So in the first series of the lecture, we have already discussed about the different conditions from the diagnosis point of view. But now in this, we will be discussing about the pathology in detail and its management, what will be there. And those who are like attending this lecture online, be listen carefully because there is a surprise in this lecture. And I want all of you, because we are all almost clinician, we are not a professor, where as in we want a Chikitsa Sutra that okay, we will be doing this Chikitsa Sutra, we will apply this Chikitsa Sutra. No. When patient comes, we forget that Chikitsa Sutra. So what are we supposed to apply? What are we supposed to think at that time? And what are the practical principles we can think and immediately? Because we don't have more time to go back to the books. Yes, of course, when patient goes after that, after the consultation, when patient leave your OPD, and then you can go back to your books and then think, okay, this is the case was this and I can do this. But at least when patient is coming first time with the present complaint, and when you have to diagnose and describe the line of treatment, so that is a challenging aspect that surprise will be there in this particular lecture. So moving with the shoulder joint pain, what is the definition of shoulder joint pain? So basically, whenever we think about shoulder joint pain, first and the foremost, we should be understanding that the pain is arising from the shoulder and its surrounding structures. There can be various disease and the conditions which can affect the structures, but the origin of the pain should be from the structures of the shoulder. For example, the shoulder structure is made up of with the three bone, three joint, and three groups of muscles. In the those who have attended first series, they will be able to understand what three bones are there. We always think about only two bones like scapula and humerus, but there is also involvement of the clavicle bone. What three joints are there? AC joint, SC joint. What is SC joint? Can anyone tell me what is a SC joint? And GH joint. So what are the full form of this SC and GH joint? GH is GH is glenohumeral joint. Glenohumeral joint. So glenohumeral joint is basically glenoid cavity and humerus ka jo articulation hai that. SC is basically sternocleido joint. So all three joint alignment is important. At the same time, there are three groups of the muscles. So which are three groups of the muscles? Which are three groups of the muscles which helps for the movement of the shoulder joint? Okay, tell me one disease or one condition where the structures of shoulder joint will be affected, where it is not an actual shoulder joint problem, but still it affects your shoulder joint. In which condition? You can tell me a Ayurvedic diagnosis, you can tell me whatever as a clinician, what you come across during the practice. Which condition affects shoulder joint? You can unmute yourself and answer so that I can understand that, okay, what are the answers I am getting and what kind of a patients you all see. Yes, Shri Yadav, ma'am. Okay, so let's move ahead. So various diseases which can include rheumatoid arthritis, where as in we diagnose as a Amvat. Specifically in rheumatoid arthritis, there is a sudden restriction and the stiffness in the shoulder joint movement. Then myofascial pain also can include your shoulder and it affect your shoulder joint. Okay, now coming to the muscle group of the shoulder, there are three groups of the muscle. One is thoracoscapular muscle, another is dorsoscapular muscle, and third one is a scapulohumeral muscles. So please go through all this, like those who have not attended first series, please go through the little bit of anatomy and physiology. I don't want you to go in detail, but when we are dealing with some structural problems of the shoulder joint, of course you need to know the at least basic of anatomy and physiology of that shoulder joint. So, what are the characteristic of the shoulder pain? So, shoulder pain we can divide into two parts. One is a true shoulder pain, and another is a referred pain in the shoulder. So, when we say what is a true shoulder pain, the pain which is arising from the structures of the shoulder itself. For example, it is arising from the acromion on top of the shoulder, or it is going up to the deltoid joint, or it is coming from the deltoid, or it is coming somewhere from the labrum, it is coming somewhere from the scapula, it is coming somewhere from the capsule. Then it is the real shoulder pain. What do I mean by referred pain in the shoulder joint is it is coming somewhere from the neck or thorax or abdomen. Say for example, if there is a left shoulder pain is there, left side shoulder pain is there, and which is patient is complaining that it is I'm feeling pain right going from here, do not miss out to diagnose with the angina pectoris or MI which patient is suspecting, or for example a pain which is coming from the abdomen, like the referred pain can come from the angle of the inferior angle of the scapula on the dorsal side, so which is like a typical indication where it is coming because of the some liver involvement, because of the irritation of that particular nerve, it is coming from that region. Sometimes the shoulder pain is referred from the lungs and the heart, the lungs also, and sometimes it is also referred from the phrenic nerve. So irritation of the phrenic nerve can also see this all we need to also understand, so that whenever we are diagnosing this particular cases, we should not miss the cases. I have learned from my guru, and he always used to tell us that Casey, what you can treat is not important. What you cannot treat, to know that, to understand that is very important. Because if you know that this case I cannot treat, then you refer that patient to some other doctor, that will not give you to that will not take you towards the negative publicity. Because if one successful case can bring 10 patients, one unsuccessful case can take 100 people, it will be a bad publicity of yours. So it is always important that what cases you cannot diagnose. Now, what is the difference between the true shoulder pain and the referred pain? So with a true shoulder pain will be never radiating below your elbow. It is always above the elbow. It is up to the elbow, from the shoulder up to the elbow. If a patient is complaining, I have a shoulder pain and I have a tingling numbness in my fingers and pain is going down up to my fingers, then it is not a true shoulder pain, it is referred pain. It can be because of the involvement of some nerve impingement, like at the outlet of brachial plexus, or it can be involvement due to some at the nerve root level, like from the cervical issues or some kind of a slip disc or disc involvement. So this all minor difference are there, and that we need to keep it in mind before we plan a line of treatment. So what I mean to say is like a true shoulder pain and referred pain in the shoulder. This distinction we should be knowing by the time patient starts telling their history, because the patient will not come with the typical sign and symptoms what we read in the books. Patient will tell their sign and symptoms, and the moment they tell you one sentence, your diagnosis, there should be differential diagnosis already going on in your mind, that okay, when I examine the patient, where should I examine the patient, what are structures I need to examine, that all it should start. You should start making a picture of that examination, that okay, I should find, like if I find this sign positive, then this is a case of impingement, or if I find this particular case, this is a case of cervical involvement, and what all diagnosis I will be suggesting to them. So all these things we are like already making a map of it in the mind once the patient start telling their complaints. So what are the pathology behind this pain? Okay, it can be either from the Rachnatmak or it can be Kriyatmak. So what do I mean by Rachnatmak and Kriyatmak over here is like Rachnatmak is somewhere where it is coming from this is my particular observation, that Rachnatmak is more or less it is related to Shira, Kandra. And when we say that the Kriyatmak is more or less it is related to the involvement of the dosha. So if there is a problem in the structures, you need to fix the structure. Now, if there is a problem in the structures, then the line of treatment what you will be planning is from the structure. If there is a samata in the structure, which dhatu it is related to. So more or less dhatu involvement is there in the rachana, because the 7 dhatus are the 7 tissues which are helping us for the formation of the body. And kriya is something which is the function where our body keeps on moving and keep going ahead. So when I have to tell you that what will be the kriyatmak structure, what will be the kriya. So I mean to ask that what are the dosha involved into the shoulder joint? Which doshas are prominent in the shoulder joint? These are very basic first year knowledge. Which dosha prominence will be there in the shoulder joint for the function kriya point of view? Anyone? Unmute yourself and tell, please.
Vata dosh, ma'am.
Vata dosh. So from the Kriyatmak point of view, Vata dosha is there. From the Rachnatmak point of view, it is a prominence of the Kapha dosha in that particular joint. That is one thing. So any joint you are dealing with, always remember that from the Rachnatmak point of view, Kapha dosha is there, because Slisha Alingane is the definition of a Kapha dosha. And along with that, if we see the structure of the shoulder joint, any particular joint, it is not just alignment of two bone. The joint definition, according to our text, they are saying that it is the alignment of two bones at the same time. Shira, Kandara, Snayu, what helps to keep that particular structure in that particular position is also a Rachana. So when Kapha dosha is in the equilibrium in that particular joint, of course that joint will be having a healthy movements. But for the movement, we say that ki joint itself will be healthy movement. But when we want to do some movements, so if you see the difference, there is a difference. Like some patient will say that there is a pain even at rest. We are not doing any movement, but still there is a pain at rest. And we are doing some movement and there is a pain. So we are not doing any movement, there is a pain, which is like somewhere there is a disturbance of the kapha dosha. We are doing some movement and there is a pain, there is a disturbance because of the vata dosha. So, and if you see the relation of a kapha and a vata, when kapha is depleting, then only vata can take that place and vata is aggravating. Or vice versa, if vata is increasing because of some or the other nidan in that particular place, then definitely it will deplete the kapha dosha in that particular joint. So this is one particular principle what we need to keep it in mind. Second principle is a shoulder joint. If we look into if we divide the different joints in our entire body, then knee, janu, that is janu, Uru, Janu, Janga. So, Uru, Janu, Janga, if you see the sthan of Vata dosha, so that all joint is a prominence of the Vata dosha in that particular prominence in the of Vata dosha is there. But when we look at the Kapha dosha, they are saying that Urdhva Bhagi, Urdhva Jatrugat, Urdhva Pradeshi. So if Urdhva Jatrugat is the shoulder is very much near to the Urdhva Jatrugat Bhag. And that is why if you see the Chikitsa Sutra in text, then for the upper Bahuka, they have written one particular Panchakarma, which is Nasyam. Right. So that also we need to keep it in mind that shoulder joint, even joint, any particular joint is a Kapha dosha prominent, but the shoulder joint is more or less relevance with the Kapha dosha. So there can be more or resembles with the Kapha dosha Visheshan. I hope you are understanding this particular concept. It's
Yes, yes,
clear?
understood.
Yes. So now, once we are done with this, then we understand that we need to understand when patient is coming into our OPD. I'm trying to make it very easy and trying to take it at the basic level. If a patient is coming with the shoulder joint pain, then we need to understand first we should be always checking about the structures, that what all structures are involved. What is the root cause of that particular pain? Is it structure or it is a function? If it is a function, then our diagnosis will go towards the pathophysiology of that particular shoulder pain problems. But if it is a structural involvement, then the diagnosis will go towards whether it is the involvement of the muscles, whether it is involvement of the ligaments, whether it is a tendon involvement, whether it is a bursa, whether it is a labrum involvement, whether there is a capsule, or whether there is a osteoarthritis structures, osseous structures involvement is there. So can anyone tell me one name which is like involvement of the capsule is there? Involvement of the capsule. The name itself will indicate that, okay, there is some problem in the capsule. It's very common name. Anyone? Adhesive capsulitis. I hope you might have heard this name. Have you all heard this name, adhesive capsulitis? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the
Yes,
adhesive
yes, yes.
capsulitis? Yes. So what is the adhesive capsulitis? It is a involvement of the capsule. So that particular the moment you hear the name itself, sometime patient will. It is not always a case where patient will be coming to you as a first time. It can be a case where patient have gone to other doctor. They have already come to you with the diagnosis. So when you see the prescription of that particular doctor, and if you see written there adhesive capsulitis, then some or the other where it should also go in your mind that, okay, the doctor have written diagnosis as the adhesive capsulitis. So it is my role that I need to reconfirm that is it really adhesive capsulitis or some other structures involvement is there. Because as I told you, most of the time, any particular patient goes to any physician with the shoulder joint pain, the normal tendency is to diagnose that it is a shoulder joint involvement, it is a frozen shoulder. Now that frozen shoulder, there is an initial range restriction is there or end range restriction is there. But then if there is only end range restriction is there, then the diagnosis differs. If there is a restriction in the range, which is like you cannot raise your shoulder beyond 90 degree, beyond 100 degree, beyond 120 degree, then it can be a case of adhesive capsulitis or frozen shoulder. So this should strike in your mind that which are the root structure involved in this particular pain. And if you understand the root structure involved into the pain, your diagnosis is easy, even if you are not able to label a big name to it, but you understand, okay, what should be my prescription? What will be the medicine I will be writing in that particular prescription? What I will advise do's and don'ts? What are other precautions I need to tell to the patient? All that we understand, even if you do not know all the name of the diseases. See, it's not important for patient will not ask you that what is the name of my disease. Patient will ask you a question that how many days it will take to get better. What all precautions am I supposed to take? And as an Ayurveda practitioner, most of the time patient will ask, क्या पथ्य follow करना है? What are the pathyas we are supposed to follow? So when we are dealing with the structural problems, do we need to advise them more of a pathyas in terms of food habit or dietary changes? No, we need to advise them more of a pathyas in terms of routine activities. So that if you fail to advise that pathya in terms of the routine activity, still you will fail to get desirable result in a short span. See, there is a big myth in the practitioners and in the local public that Ayurveda takes long period to give the results. See, I'll share one of my case. There was one patient, she's somewhere around 63, 64. She is a yoga teacher herself. Now, she is a known case of diabetes. Her diabetes remains under control. One day she came and I have a pain somewhere behind my shoulder over here. See, this was the place where she was complaining of pain. So I asked her that how many days did you, I mean, since how many days you are getting this pain? Then she's like, just for the 2 days. So now it is very important that you understand the mechanism of that particular pain, that why she is getting that pain. So you try to understand and try to ask all the possible questions that, okay, did you do anything? Did you lift some weight? Did you fall? Did anybody hit you don't remember that there was some jerk while traveling to by the train? If you are like holding your hand like this while traveling by bus or while traveling by train, and suddenly if somebody pushes from behind, then there will be jerk over this particular place. So all that questions I asked, and then she's like, nothing as such, nothing I have done. I don't remember any such thing. Only thing she was doing is like she wanted to go for a trek, so she had started going for the walks regularly. And while going for the walks, I have seen a new change in her, which was like she was carrying some backpack. Then I asked her that, are you lifting? Because it was her left side. And if we have a tendency to carry our bag like, okay, we will lift the bag and we will try to put it like this. So there was some stretch on that area. And then I told her she happened to came on Saturday. So I told her that, see, today I'm giving you this medicine. You take this medicine, and then you do ice application, cold fermentation, and you tell me on the Monday that how are you feeling. Are we supposed to do anything extra if it doesn't subside? But on Monday she called that my pain is almost 90% better. Then I was like, okay, continue with the medication. What oil liniment I have given you, that you continue, and ice application you continue. That is more than sufficient. So even like taking a painkiller would have just subsided her pain, but it might have resurfaced. The only beauty of our medicine is like they will heal the structures. There was some micro injury to her muscle, or some impingement was there to her ligament, and then the medicine itself has helped to relieve that pain. So that's what, if your diagnosis is correct, then you will be able to give the results immediately. You will not keep on thinking, okay, आज पेशेंट आया, मैं आज उसको ये वाला गूगल देता हूँ, फिर बाद में जब नेक्स्ट टाइम आएगा तब मैं दूसरा वाला गूगल देता हूँ. No, you will not experiment. You will be firm on your prescription, that okay, and you will be confident on your prescription. Now, what are the common shoulder pathologies? Impingement syndrome, bicep tendon tear, rotator cuff tear, adhesive capsulitis, and arthritis. What is impingement syndrome? Has anyone heard about shoulder impingement? Has anyone heard about shoulder impingement?
No, ma'am.
Yes? No, ma'am. No. Okay, fine. So now see, that is the main reason that the theme of today's lecture is like, not every shoulder joint pain is a frozen shoulder. If you see the incidence of the shoulder pain, then the impingement syndrome cases are 70%, whereas the adhesive capsulitis or the frozen shoulder are 20% of the cases. So in our day-to-day routine practice, where we are doing a mistake, most of the time we end up diagnosing the 12% cases we are diagnosed. I mean, 70% of the cases we end up diagnosing as a adhesive capsulitis. Then very few cases are of bicipital tendinitis, acromioclavicular joint or osteoarthritis, and other where there is a instability. So like fracture, dislocation, infection related cases are hardly 7%. So like if you see, I don't know, like as an Ayurvedic practitioners, of course, we get to treat more of a knee joint pain patient, and like we might be every time with every single patient you treat of a knee joint pain, there will be some new thought behind your in your mind that, okay, last knee joint pain was different from this knee joint patient is different from this, and that's how we keep on thinking, we keep on learning, and we keep on understanding that what can be the reason behind knee joint pain. But I know that for the shoulder joint pain, very few cases we see, and when we are seeing very few cases, like we don't end up thinking all the time that okay, out of 10, if you have only one patient of the shoulder joint pain, you will not go and refer every time what can be the reason for shoulder joint pain. But if that one patient also, if you can treat it successfully, that one shoulder pain patient will bring another 10 shoulder pain cases. In my practice, I'll tell you that when I started my practice in 2011, maximum number of shoulder patient we have treated successfully. And I used to wonder what new we can do for the knee joint pain. Why am I not getting results into a slip disc cases? Like I'm talking about lumbar slip disc. Why we are not getting successful results? Because even if you do all the treatment, you try doing all the possible things, and still you get a result. But that result is some or the other were still pinching in my mind that okay, they have not got 100% result. Patient doesn't complain that okay, I'm still like I'm not getting result, I'm not feeling better. Patient says I'm feeling better, but then we take a detailed history. Patient will say, oh, little tingling numbness is there, there is difficulty in walking, like I can walk only for 10-15 minutes, after that my back starts paining. I'm not in a terrible pain, but my daily routine activity is still discomfort. So for me that was like a question mark, that why I'm not getting a like good results into a back pain patient. But for the shoulder pain, it was like a what you can say, you can see the difference and you can see the results like in front of you. Patient has come first day with hardly like this much of flexion and sorry, this much of adduction or this much of flexion, and that patient itself is improving and showing the result within 15-20 days. And then we tell the patient that okay, after 1.5 month your entire range will be there, you will be able to do all the activities without any discomfort. So this was the like initial stage, 2011 to 2015-16. If I tell you, maximum successfully treated patient were of shoulder pain. So that's what, if you treat one particular patient of shoulder pain successfully, and that is also challenging. I'm not talking about simple frozen shoulder cases. If there are some challenging patients are there, and if you treat that challenging patient 1% also, that patient will bring another 10 patients. And that is why we need, like in a practice, I'm not saying everyone will be like up to the mark, but in a practice we should always try to upgrade our knowledge. What are the causes for shoulder pain? One, everyone knows, one is the Nija Hetu and another is Aganta Hetu. If it is a Nija Hetu, then it is like something internal changes are going on, and Agantu, some external factors like force, sorry, like a fall, or there are some force jerk activities, or some overuse of that particular part is there, and that are external factors, excessive usage of that particular part, or sudden, anything which is sudden or acute is because of Agantu Hetu. So, what we will do for the now, when we are dealing with the patient, there is a difference. When we are dealing with the patient who is coming with no history of agantuj cause, then the examination differs. If a patient is coming with the history of fall, or if they are coming with sudden pain, then the examination differs. So when we are talking about a patient who does not have any history of fall, and where as in we have to think about, okay, there are no any external force being applied to the shoulder, there is no fall, there is no like someone has not hit her, then or hit that particular patient, then what can be the reason? So when we are doing the examination, that time what we have to do is like whether there is a true glenohumeral movement, or it is a movement what patient is doing from the scapular joint, scapula, and the pain on movement, muscle spasms are there, crepitus or the movement. So for example, what all movements we can do at the shoulder joint, because shoulder joint is the only joint which is highly mobile at the risk of its stability. So we should be aware of all the range of the shoulder. First of all, we are just thinking about okay, this is a flexion, we only check about flexion, abduction, then are you able to take it behind, but there are some other movements are also there. Now even when we are just first, we will just examine about flexion, abduction, internal rotation. So when a patient is doing flexion, is a patient is doing a movement like properly, if a patient is doing movement properly with the glenohumeral joint, because the ranges of the shoulder joint, half of the range is through the help of scapula and half of the range is with the help of glenohumeral joint. So if the proper glenohumeral joint involvement is there like this, or patient is able to take it properly like this, or for example patient is doing movement like this, so you can see that this is a proper glenohumeral movement. But when patient is able to do movement like this and the hand is going up like this is not a glenohumeral movement happening, this is a scapular movement. So that is an indication that, okay, there is some problem in the shoulder. It is a problem in the shoulder. If a patient has a shoulder pain and he's able to do all these ranges properly, then it might be referring from some other place. Then the second thing is, where is the site of pain? Where does a patient is getting pain? Then is there any muscle spasm? Now, sometime when you keep a hand on the shoulder joint and ask the patient to do ranges, active movement, then you see the crepitus. So why there is a crepitus? What is the reason of crepitus? All that thing we should start thinking. If there is a crepitus, it can be because of the like laxity in the capsule, or it can be because of the OA changes in that particular joint, or instability of the shoulder joint. So all these things start the moment we start examining, and specifically when we are examining in terms of the movement. Here I have a question, that how many of you examine a patient when patient comes in your OPD? How many of you examine a patient when patient comes in the OPD? Examination, when I tell, it is like a 3 examination. How many of you do? What are 3 examination?
Darshana Sprashana Prashna.
Yes, darshana, sparshana, prashna. So darshan is basically inspection of the patient, right? So how many of you at least tell patient that, okay, you have a shoulder joint pain, no? So let me examine, let me inspect your shoulder. Is there any swelling? There is no swelling. How many of you do it? How many of you actually touch the patient or touch the shoulder joint and try to understand where is the local tenderness? What is there a pain or it is a tenderness? What is the difference between a normal pain and a tenderness? Because this tenderness, if you understand, it will help you for the treatment planning, lining your prescription.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Actually, while examining patient, we first of all will ask whether there is a spasm with means actually दर्शन स्पर्शन और प्रश्न प्रश्न
Yes.
पूछने के बाद पता चलता है कि उधर पेन कौन से साइड पे है देखने से भी पता चलता है उधर रेडनेस है स्पाज्म है स्टिफनेस है वो पता चलता है और पेशेंट के मूवमेंट्स जो भी एबडक्शन एडक्शन करने के बाद में पता चलता है कि मूवमेंट किधर रिस्ट्रिक्ट हो रहा है क्या कौन सी जगह पे है ये देखने के बाद में पता चलेगा कि एग्जैक्टली पेन कहाँ हो रहा है और क्यों हो रहा है
यस राइट सो इसी को एग्जाम हाँ बोलो मैम
हाँ और इसी में मतलब टाइप ऑफ पेन की पेन कैसे होता है आपको कि जैसे कोई पीटता है वैसे पेन हो रहा है मतलब जैसे प्रिकिंग पेन है कौन सा पेन है विच टाइप ऑफ पेन इज देयर then only we can come to know exactly what type of pain is there.
What dosha is involved in that
Dosha is
pain.
involved, right, exactly.
Yes, what dosha is involved in that pain, right, ma'am? So if we see like इसी को दर्शन स्पर्शन प्रश्न को ही मैंने सिंपल कर दिया है. Just remember any particular joint when it is coming, you have to look at the joint, you have to feel the joint, and then you have to move. It is like पहले लड़की को देख के ही आपको फीलिंग्स आएगी ना और उसके बाद ही आप शायद आपका प्रपोजल लेके मूव करोगे यू विल मूव अहेड टू प्रपोज हर राइट सो सिमिलरली वी फॉल इन लव विद अ फीमेल और अपोजिट sex opposite gender similarly fall in love with your joints fall in love with your patient's examination so it is simple look feel and move first inspection then you will palpate and then you will do specific test or you will do the movement of that particular joint to understand that where is the exact point pain involved and when I was talking about the difference between pain and tenderness also will give a pain on touching there will be pain one is a pain when you examine the patient another pain which is like even if you're just touching the joint they will say like that they will do the reaction so that is a tenderness if there is a tenderness which dosha involvement will be there more prominence of which dosha will be there it will be rakta dhatu involvement Shushruta says it as a rakta dosha because you see open the text and see that Sparsha asahitnutva is a typical characteristic of Rakta Dhatu or Rakta Dosha, whatever you want to say. And if like Rakta, so basically definitely we can correlate it with the Pitta Dosha. Now, moving in detail with shoulder impingement syndrome. So the most common cause of the shoulder pain, it is due to structural narrowing of the subacromion space. So here, if you can see, the supraspinatus tendon is passing below the acromioclavicular joint, and that blue structure is there, which is a bursa. And on top, there is a tendon, again, that is the insertion of the deltoid. So there is a space between acromioclavicular joint and between the head of the humerus, and that space is called as a subacromion space. Now, through in that particular space, there are rotator cuff tendons are there, which is coming and inserting on the shoulder joint. Okay, so what are the rotator cuff? 4 tendons of rotator cuff. Anyone who have attended last series? 4 tendon of rotator cuff. Supraspinatus, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and
Subscapularis.
subscapularis, right? So this 4 structure, always remember: supraspinatus, infraspinatus, subscapularis, and teres minor. Out of all these 3, only subscapularis is on the anteriorly. All 3 other muscles are coming from the posterior aspect. Subscapularis, supraspinatus and supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor is coming from the posterior aspect. Only subscapularis is in the anterior aspect. So this tendons, when they are coming and getting insert on the head of the humerus, then that space, if there is a narrowing of the space, then definitely there will be some problem. Now, if a shoulder joint is at rest, will there be narrowing of the space? The mechanism is such where you can do a free movement of the shoulder joint. But if little bit space reduction is there, the moment you do the movement, you will start realizing the pain. Okay, that is one thing. Second thing, if there are some given reasons or structure involvement which can produce or which can do a narrowing of the space at the rest also, then there will be pain at the rest also. Okay, so if there is an involvement of the bursa, subacromion bursa, which is a blue structure over here, then there will be involvement. Then the pain will be at rest also, because bursitis itself indicate that the fluid, synovial fluid inside that bursa has increased, and because of that, and that bursa is there to protect the friction between bone and tendon. But if that bursa is filled with the fluid, then definitely it will reduce the space, because that fluid itself will occupy that space. So that is why if bursitis is there, patient may complain pain at rest, but at the same time pain on the movement also. Okay, we will differentiate the symptom of shoulder impingement syndrome and frozen shoulder at the end of the lecture. But the shoulder impingement syndrome is also known as subacromial impingement, where the name itself is suggesting that subacromion bursa is involved. The painful arc syndrome. When we say painful arc syndrome, there will be involvement of the tendons of rotator cuff. Supraspinatus syndrome, so only supraspinatus tendon is involved. Again, rotator cuff tendinitis. So one or the more than 1 or 2 tendons of that particular rotator cuff is involved. Swimmer's shoulder. Now, how many of you know swimming? I don't know. But when you do the swimming, at that particular time, there is a movement of your shoulder, because most of the movements, like if you do a freestyle, you are doing the movement like this. If you're doing a backstroke, then the movement is like this. Even when you're doing breaststroke, the movement is like this. So everywhere, most of the time, shoulder is involved. And second thing is the kicking, where the kicking is happening from the hip joint. So this all structural involvement we should be keeping in mind when we want to also get specialized into a sports injury, because sports is a field where more of a muscle ligament tendon bursa involvement is there. Second is the thrower's shoulder. Now, when we say thrower's shoulder, this will give us a specific diagnosis. So thrower's shoulder is something where, like, a cricketer or a table tennis player, they're doing using their shoulder in a specific direction and specific angle. So that time there will be impingement that will lead to the impingement. So this impingement, there are 5 causes of painful arc syndrome. And this is a clinical feature are the same in each. So, depending upon the involvement of the structure, the 5 causes are there. One, incomplete tear of supraspinatus. Second, supraspinatus tendinitis. Third, calcific deposit in supraspinatus tendon. Fourth, it is a subacromial bursitis. And fifth, it is injury of the greater tuberosity. Why the injury of the greater tuberosity is important? Because if you see on the greater tuberosity towards that, then there is a bicipital groove, and through which that bicep tendon is passing, and it is also a forming part, like anterior part of the labrum, which is directly going, originating from the anterior aspect of the labrum. So that is equally important. Now, what will be the symptom of painful arc syndrome? So symptom and specific test, if we have to see that Neer sign and Hawkins signs, we have already discussed, so I'm not going into detail. But the patient generally experience pain in the anterior or front of the shoulder during a overhead activity. Now, if you see the range of that shoulder, the patient's 45-degree pain, it is painless. Then when you ask a patient to raise it above, like above 45 to 120-degree, it will be a painful arc. So that is why it is named as a painful arc. So between 45 to 120-degree, patient will say, I am experiencing, specifically they will say that he zero, like I don't have a pain up to this range, but beyond this I am getting pain, and then my range is pain free, or I don't have a pain. So whenever a patient is complaining like half middle range is painful, it can be painful arc syndrome. Then you need to go back. You cannot just stop there. You have to understand, okay, my diagnosis is painful arc syndrome, so which structure involvement is there? That is also important. Like, is it because of the acromion bursa? Is it because of some tendinitis? Is it because of the supraspinatus tear? What is the pathology behind that? You need to understand. So what is the differential diagnosis between the painful arc syndrome and this arthritis? Because if you see acromioclavicular joint arthritis, there will be a pain. The range is completely pain free, and from beyond 170-degree, like this much, then they will say, now this is giving me pain, this is giving me pain. So there is a difference between painful arc syndrome. The mid range is painful specifically in abduction, not flexion. Abduction, you will see the pain. Abduction. What are 4 types of impingement? One is primary impingement, is because of what? That if you see the structure, there is an acromion process, and depending upon the acromion process shape, the narrowing of the space can be there. You can see here in the blue color that, okay, large area available for tendons and the bursa, but depending upon the shape. Like in type 1, the shape is flat. In type 2, it is curved. In type 3, it is curved. At the same time, there is a notch also. So this is a structural problem, and that is why it can be a primary impingement, where the outlet or where the space itself is less because of the structure itself. Okay. And it is an extra articular rotator cuff pathology. And because there is a space reduction, the irritation of supraspinatus tendon is there. If you palpate the patient, pain will be in the anterior or the front of the shoulder during the overhead, that we understood. And pain at night when they roll on that shoulder, because there is some kind of a inflammation, irritation is there. So if you want to diagnose, you can advise X-ray in this kind of a cases. Now, what is a secondary impingement? Due to the problem. Now, the secondary impingement is where, as in primary structures are not involved. But if you imagine the shoulder structure, then in the glenoid cavity, this head of the humerus is fixing. So when there is a problem with this head of the humerus to be stable in this glenoid cavity, if it is not stable in the glenoid cavity, the placement of this humerus, like slightly above, slightly lower, that can also increase or reduce the space of that subacromion. That can also reduce space of the subacromion, and that can be a reason where it is a secondary impingement is happening. And why this happens? Because of weakness in the rotator cuff muscles, that is a functional stability with the glenohumeral capsule and the ligament. Where do we see this kind of a cases? It will be more of a younger patients. ठीक है. The pain located, again, it will be located in the anterior or anterolateral aspect of the shoulder joint, and pain will be specifically with the activity. Why there will be pain specifically because with the activity? Because this is a functional instability is there. Okay. So when you are trying to do the movement, that time the stability is less because of the weakness of the rotator cuff muscle. Otherwise, the structure is in the normal position. So more or less you will see pain while doing a specific overhead activity. Now third is subcoracoid impingement or subcoracoid stenosis. Now what do we mean by subcoracoid impingement or subcoracoid stenosis? If you all palpate your shoulder joint, what all structures you can palpate by yourself? Tell me. What all structures you can palpate yourself? On the top, if you see over here, you can palpate. This is your clavicle going from here, and it is coming on the shoulder joint. I hope you all can you all can also palpate along with me. So from the clavicle, start palpating. So from the clavicle, so middle aspect of the clavicle, first is the sternocleidomastoid joint. Then you start palpating your clavicle and reach towards the lateral end of the clavicle, and there it is acromion process also. So you can feel a joint there, and that is acromioclavicular joint. If you are feeling joint over, if you're feeling acromioclavicular joint over here somewhere on top of your shoulder, and then if you come in the front, there is one particular bony structure, that is your coracoid process. And then if you go little ahead, this is your head of the humerus, because during the dislocation we see a sulcus or we see a one finger gap. That is a diagnosis for your dislocation of the shoulder joint. So now if there is a subcoracoid impingement, because the subscapularis which is passing through that particular structure, if there is a narrowing of that space is there, then the subscapularis tear will be there. So till now we have seen either involvement of the supraspinatus. Now second we are seeing is the subscapularis tear. So if there is some inflammation over here, then there will be subscapularis tear or subscapularis involvement is there. The next is internal glenoid impingement. This is important, that what do we mean by internal glenoid impingement and where a patient will complain pain side. So in first three types of the pain, it was in the front or anterior aspect of the shoulder, but in the internal glenoid impingement, it will be on the back side of the shoulder. And that this when I was preparing for this presentation, that time only, that first patient what I discussed, she came in my OPD and then she was like, I am having a pain over here. So I always try to understand that what can be the root cause for this pain. And at that particular time, this came in my mind that, okay, it can be internal glenoid impingement. And that is the reason. So if there is an impingement, definitely somewhere there will be some kind of inflammation, which is not very severe. It is not triggered. But then if we help to settle that inflammation then and there only, then that will also that will settle her pain. And that is why that the patient in the evening, Saturday evening, she had come. So she took one dose of medicine, and that was also only one tablet I had given, not 2, 3, 4. That was having only one tablet, which was containing shallaki along with some asti poshak content, according to our Ayurveda. That only one tablet, and maybe she might have taken 4 or 5 doses, because Monday morning she called me that I'm feeling much better and I don't need to come and see you again. So that is why the important diagnosis is important. Now, internal glenoid impingement, it name itself suggests that somewhere there is a problem which is arising from the glenoid cavity. The structure which are surrounding the glenoid cavity is labrum. So some or the other where maybe labrum involvement will be there. That is why it is an intra-articular rotator cuff pathology will be there. The most common cause of, and this is the most common cause of posterior shoulder pain, and the throwing overhead, that is called as a cocking phase. If you can see the image, a person who is trying to do a bowling, when it is going into the extreme external rotation and then the movement is coming in the forward, that time that impingement is there. So if you know this kind of a mechanism, then you can relate that, okay, if patient is coming with this posterior shoulder pain, I can ask, if a male patient is there, I can always ask them that, did you play, I mean, you don't have a habit of playing cricket every day, but did you played cricket? So this thing will help you to understand the root structures. Then the involvement, why this internal glenoid impingement happens, because of the subscapularis weakness. So this is a patient in the clinic. You all will diagnose. You all can hear this video, right?
Yes, yes.
Ha.
No sound.
No sound. Now, the video sound is clear.
No sound, madam.
Oh,
No sound.
no sound.
Okay. ठीक है. See, अभी 1 minute. हाँ. अभी मैं क्या एक्सप्लेन कर रही हूँ फिर से बताती हूँ. I will take it behind. See, मैंने जो अभी टिप पॉइंट पे रखा है, that is head of the humerus. What I'm trying to explain is, if you see the both arm shape, then you can make out that कि उनका जो लेफ्ट साइड का जो आर्म है, वो लेफ्ट आर्म साइड के आर्म का कॉन्टूर और राइट के आर्म का देखोगे तो डेल्टॉइड मसल वीकनेस इज देयर. अभी ये deltoid muscle weakness or deltoid muscle wasting is there. Now how much she is able to do the movement. See what ranges she is doing, and this is the flexion she is doing. Okay, how much she could do? This is 50 to 60 degrees she is able to do. Now she will be doing it on the she is doing adduction. If you can see the adduction, she is able to do it from 0 to 40 degrees. Somewhere she has done it. Beyond that, it is not possible for her. Now I'm doing it passive movement of that shoulder joint. She's able to do the passive movement. Pain is there, but there is no if you see, there is no restriction in the movement. By herself she is not able to do. That is called as an active movement. And if with the assistant she is able to do, that is called a passive movement. So passive movement of the shoulder joint is up to 170 180 sorry, 150 160 degree. And active range of the motion is somewhere around abduction is 40 45 degree, and flexion is somewhere around 50 to 60 degree. Okay. So this somewhere I find that more or less deltoid muscle wasting. I was understanding that there is a deltoid muscle wasting. Now where will you get a deltoid muscle wasting, or where you see the wasting of the muscle? Where do we see wasting of the muscles? Whenever any particular pathology is long standing, whenever pain area, the pain of that particular place is long standing, then we will see the wasting of the muscles. So what do we mean by wasting of the muscle? That particular muscles belly is reducing. Similar kind of a cases we tend to get in the knee joint patients also. If you examine properly that patient, you can see the quadricep muscle wasting. And even if you see the quadricep muscle wasting, and you tell the patient while examining that your knee joint pain is not recent, even though you are telling me that it is since past 2 to 3 months, it is aggravated since past 2 to 3 months, but the knee joint pain is long standing. So if you tell the patient that your knee joint pain even is not since past 2 to 3 months, it is long standing, maybe this knee joint pain is giving you trouble since past 2 years 5 years, but now it is aggravating. That patient gets impressed. Doctor, आपको कैसे पता चला? मैंने तो आपको बोला 2 से 3 ही महीना है. This is with the help of examination. And if you examine it, when you diagnose and when you tell the patient that this is what I can make out from your problem, patient gets confidence on you. And before the treatment, before we start the treatment, patient is half healed, because patient's confidence on the doctor is most important. Okay. Now, this needs classification of impingement. Why you need to understand this? Because it is from the treatment point of view, and this will give us an idea that, okay, if it is a shoulder joint impingement, then which stage impingement it will be. So say for example, there will be in stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. The structure involvement is either subacromial bursa, rotator cuff, subscapular. Rotator cuff itself involves, like, to be precise, subscapularis, supraspinatus involvement, it will be there. So in the stage 1 patient, who will be in the stage 1 where there is some edema and some hemorrhage in that particular area, that are the patient who is less than 25. So what you can expect is, okay, it is into the reversible stage, and it is occurred because of the repetitive overhead activity. If a patient who is coming between 25 and 40, they will be presenting a symptom of fibrosis and tendinitis. Either it can be a fibrosis of that particular structure, or there will be tendinitis. It occurs from the repetitive episode of mechanical inflammation. If there is a repetitive activity is there, for example, a female of 30, 35 coming to you with the complaint, then you should be thinking that, okay, you should be asking a leading question that, okay, you are getting pain since 1 day or 1 week. Did you do any cleaning of your house before, specifically before the festivals like Diwali, Dashera? They want to clean entire house. So this kind of activity is more, because like overhead activities will be there. So that will give you an idea that, okay, this is into this stage, and recurrent pain with activities will be there. And third stage, who are above 40, and these are like, what will be their present, what structural involvement is there, you will understand that, okay, there is a bone spurs can be there, or rupture of the tendon can be there, or because of repetitive trauma the tendon can get rupture. So even if patient does not complain, does not show a history of fall or history of trauma, still there can be tendon rupture. So this thing helps us to plan a line of treatment. Okay, so now, like, we have seen different type of shoulder impingement, what all can cause. So what will be the line of treatment, what principles we are supposed to follow for to treat this kind of a cases? Can anyone tell me like little bit idea that what you will, I mean, if a patient of this kind comes to you, what you will think? Do we need to diagnose this, I mean, do we need to give a name to this patient disease, and then only we get a line of treatment? Do we need to give a name to this disease?
Dhatu
Dhatu involved.
Yes,
We have to
sorry.
first find out Dhatu. Which
Mm-hmm.
Dhatu is involved? We have to first
Mm-hmm.
find it.
Hmm.
After we have to make proper diagnosis. Then we have to choose the internal medications for it.
Hmm.
It might
Hmm.
be kashaya formulations or tail formulations.
Ha,
Or
so my question is ki, are we supposed to give any name to the disease?
name to the
Hmm. Yes. For the namesake diagnosis, we can give Apabahuka, Vishwachi, Sandhigat Vata name. But it does not really help for the clinical understanding. In the clinical conditions, characteristic of the disease is more important than the name of the disease. Okay. Even if you will diagnose this as a Apabahuka, are you going to apply Apabahuka treatment in this?
no.
Apabahuka Chikitsa Sutra. Are you going to apply a Vishwachi Chikitsa in this? Are you going to apply a Sandhigat Vata Chikitsa in this kind of a cases? No. You will try to understand characteristic of the disease rather than naming. So what we can understand from this, there are no specific, like, for Grahani, we have got a line of treatment. For Kushta Chikitsa, for psoriasis, we have got a proper set line of a treatment. If there is a Vat increase, we have got a Chikitsa Sutra for that. But for this kind of a problems, or say if I have to name a cancer, there is no fixed line of treatment. What are we doing? We are trying to understand what is the characteristic, what they're coming with the complaint. If you see in the cancer patient, most of the time patient says there is no appetite. Shudamandya, that is the first sign, Shudamandya. So now, if Shudamandya is like the patient is coming with the cancer history somewhere else, but Shudamandya is the first symptom. So where will you treat? Shudamandya you will treat, right? So similarly, for the treatment perspective, when it is not described, this characteristic is not described in our text, what are we supposed to understand? The clinical entity or the characteristic of the disease. So what type of a vikara prakriti is there? Now, that is why initially I asked that, okay, what you can say is like tenderness. What does the tenderness indicate to us? Now, when you are palpating the patient, the pain, when the pain is eliciting, with how much pressure patient is complaining pain, do we need to put more pressure? Can you put more pressure, or it is with just touch patient, like this they are reacting. So this is a clinical characteristic. Then there is a difference in the swelling also. Even if there is a swelling present on the shoulder joint, there are swelling which is hard swelling, because we don't use, I don't know how many of you are using, but I am at least not using a practical grantokta words like shotha, shavatu, because that is not going to help me to understand the pathology behind it. So when I practically see, okay, there is a swelling, what type of a swelling is there? Like it is a hard swelling, or I can feel some fluid inside and it is a soft sort swelling. So if that is a hard swelling, it is more or less related to kapha. If the swelling is soft type of a swelling, it is more or less related to pitta. Now, can anyone tell me that how pitta is gone there? और why मैंने क्यों वो डायग्नोस किया पित्ता हो सकता है वहां पे? कफ, सॉरी, संधि इज अ स्थान ऑफ कफ, तो कफ हो सकता है, आई अंडरस्टैंड। पित्त वहां पे कैसे चला गया, या पित्त वहां पे जाके क्या करेगा? अंडरस्टैंड द संप्राप्ति।
रक्त धातु को दूषित धातु के साथ पित्त हो जाते हैं, दूषित।
ओके, रक्त धातु को दूषित करेगा तो वहां पे हमारे जो शिरा कंडरा स्नायु है, बिकॉज शिरा कंडरा स्नायु आर उपधातु ऑफ रक्त धातु, सो दैट इन्वॉल्वमेंट इज देयर। व्हाट एल्स इट विल डू? पित्त धातु व्हाट एल्स विल डू? पित्त दोषा विल डू व्हाट एल्स? पित्त की जो ऊष्मा है वो कफ जो है, कफ को द्रवीभूत करता है, एंड दैट इज द सेम प्रिंसिपल व्हाट वी लर्न फॉर द वसंत ऋतु वमना प्रिंसिपल, राइट? दैट की व्हाई वी आर डूइंग वमना, लाइक एडवाइसिंग वमना स्पेसिफिकली मोर इनटू द वसंत ऋतु, क्योंकि आफ्टर विंटर सीजन, आफ्टर शिशिर ऋतु, वसंत जब आता है, सन की गर्मी से वो कफ जो है वो द्रवीभूत होना चालू होता है। दैट इज व्हाई वी आर टेलिंग टू डू वसंत ऋतु वना, राइट? सो सेम थिंग, व्हेन पित्त दोषा इज गोइंग देयर, इट इज द्रवीभूत करता है, उसको मेल्ट करता है वो कफ को। और वो अगर कफ मेल्ट हो रहा है वहां पे, तो व्हाट इट विल हेल्प, वहां पे यू विल फील दैट देयर इज लाइक दैट इन्फ्लेमेशन, और दैट स्वेलिंग इज लाइक अ सॉफ्ट, देयर इज सम फ्लूइड इज देयर। तो इफ देयर इज सम फ्लूइड, व्हाट यू विल डू? थिंक ऑफ, विल यू गिव उष्ण द्रव्य देयर?
No.
Will you give Ishna Dravya? No.
No.
If you give Ishna Dravya, that will increase. What you need to do? You have to give Rakta Prasadana, Shita Viryatmak Dravya, and you have to do Shoshan of that particular Drava with Kapha, right? So line of treatment is simple. And what are the cause of that? Now, what are the cause? According to that, you will understand that what is the prominent dosha involved for that. So the entities may change, but this framework of this A, B, and C remains the same. So that is why whenever any, I'm not just talking about shoulder joint pain, I'm talking about any particular disease. You name it, a difficult, like yesterday there was a case of demyelination of dorsal spine in my clinic. Now, if there is a demyelination of dorsal spine, spinal cord, what should I diagnose? How will I understand that what I am supposed to apply a samprapti and what I am supposed to apply a line of principle? So from the entire history what I took of the patient, I found that it is a santarpanaj vyadhi and kapha prominent vyadhi is there. So then accordingly you can plan a line of treatment. Now what do we mean? Demyelination, reduce sensation. What is the complaint of patient? There is no erection, there is no control on the urine, and stools he cannot pass by himself. There is no sensation. There is no sensation. Sensation is not there. So some or the other where dhatu shaitilya is there. Now there is a dhatu shaitilya. Shaitilya is a lakshan of kaphaji dhatu, and kapha dosha, and kapha dosha is there. Then definitely there is in the background there is a lot of santarpana vyadhi, along with just a demyelination. Along with that, he is having splenomegaly, hepatomegaly. He is having uncontrolled diabetes. He is on insulin. So all this is leading towards the santarpanotha vyadhi, which is later on going towards the apatarpanaj vyadhi. So the general principle for shoulder pathology, which we need to keep it in mind, is sthana vaishishya kapha dosha. Then we have to think about pitta and the involvement of the vata dosha. So what principles we will follow? Kapha haratva, pitta shamana, Vata Shamana, Vedana Stapana, because the most important results what you need to give it to the patient is Vedana Shamana. And Sthirikaranam of the Shira, because shoulder is the highly mobile joint at the cost of its stability. So we need to also strengthen our Shiras and Kandras. So now, even though we have understood shoulder impingement, but depending upon the cause, now for example, subacromial bursitis or subdeltoid bursitis is there, what line of treatment we will see? Of course, there will be swelling, tenderness, and the most important symptom is like after getting up in the morning, when I'm trying to lift my hand up, it gives me abduction, it gives me pain. After some time, the pain is reducing. So, what treatment? Now, this is your diagnosis. Even though it was a shoulder joint pain, shoulder impingement was there, painful arc syndrome or shoulder impingement, we have diagnosed. The main cause of this was subacromial bursitis. What line of treatment you will say? What you are going to tell me line of treatment, and I'm going to write the line of treatment. Bolo. So what line of treatment you will be doing? I'm going to write the treatment. And this was a surprise. Purposefully मैंने उसमें line of treatment नहीं डाला है. Tell me. What a line of treatment you will follow? Subacromial bursitis is there. What line of treatment you will follow? Bursitis, there will be inflammation of the bursa. There will be fluid-like sensation in that. So first thing what we need to do is वहां पे हमें लोकल पाचन करने की जरूरत है. पाचन करने के लिए हम क्या करेंगे? लेप लगाएंगे. ठीक है,
वेदना
लेप एडवाइस कर सकते हैं हम. बोलो. यस, बोलो
शोफहर
बोलो बोलो.
शोफहर
शोफहर करेंगे हम, राइट.
रक्त धातु प्रसाधन वाले जो ड्रग्स है वो यूज करेंगे
वेरी
एंड
गुड, रक्त धातु प्रसाधन करेंगे, बराबर है.
एक्सटर्नल एप्लीकेशन में जस्ट लाइक जड़ा मायादी
यस
लेपम या नागर आदि लेपम इस तरह से यूज करेंगे.
यस, वेरी गुड. हाँ.
आफ्टर दैट विद इन 10 to 12 days वी सी द पेशेंट्स कि उसका वेदना हो रहा है या नहीं. उसके आगे के बाद रेंज ऑफ मोशन जो है उसमें काम करेंगे.
ओके, सो व्हाट मेडिसिन शोफहर के लिए, व्हाट मेडिसिन यू विल गिव?
टैबलेट शल्य की फॉर टेंडरनेस इफ प्रेजेंट. Otherwise, Google Forms we can.
Yes, what Gogulu you can give?
पुनर्नवादी गुगुळ, गोक्षुरादी गुगुळ.
Very good. Gokshuradi Gugul you can give, but Gokshuradi Gugul specifically, I will tell that ki if there is a history of diabetes in this patient, that works wonder. Because Gokshur, if you see, it works, it helps to do a play the Shoshana. Rakta Prasadan wala. Keshor Gugul. Vatrakta
Google.
Chikitsa.
Yes, Keshar Google.
Shallaki. Or I will say that usually I try to do, I select a drug which has combination of Shallaki and Asti Dhatu Poshan. So हमारा दोनों भी काम उधर हो जाता है. But the principal main you will follow over here is Shofahara रक्त प्रसादन वाले मेडिसिन हमें देने हैं, राइट. सो आई होप मैंने यहाँ पे लाइन ऑफ ट्रीटमेंट नहीं लिखा है पर्पसफुली, बिकॉज व्हाट हैपेंड इज आफ्टर सम टाइम आई सी दैट like those who have enrolled for this course, they follow the formula practice कि हाँ हमें यही मेडिसिन देना है और इससे रिजल्ट आता है. You can use your brain also. Over here I have written one कषायम is बला पुनर्नवादी कषायम. So बला basically helps for the वात शमन, वेदना है वहां पे, वात शमन के लिए हेल्प करता है. और पुनर्नवादी ऑफ कोर्स वहां पे जो स्वेलिंग है उसको कम करने के लिए हेल्प करेगा. बला पुनर्नवादी कषायम, कैशोर गुगुल, वन अदर ड्रग लेप चिकित्सा. इफ यू आर गिविंग लेप देन डोंट गो फॉर द ऑयल एप्लीकेशन, बिकॉज हमें पहले वहां पे पाचन करना है, दोषों का पाचन करना है वहां पे. तो हम लेप से वहां पे जो कफ का द्रवीभूत हुआ है वहां पे शोषण करेंगे और उसके बाद हम वहां पे पाचन चिकित्सा करेंगे. दोज हु आर नॉट अंडरस्टैंडिंग, डोंट वरी, आई विल बी शेयरिंग अ पीडीएफ. वो पीडीएफ जब शेयर करूंगी तो उसमें ट्रीटमेंट ऑप्शंस लिखे हुए रहेंगे. इधर ब्लैंक है बट बाद में शेयर करूंगी. जब करूंगी तो उसमें ट्रीटमेंट के साथ ही आएगा. आई होप यू ऑल आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so next moving on to next, we are where, 1 minute. So now supraspinatus tendinosis and tendinitis. What is the difference between supraspinatus tendinosis and tendinitis? This also works, right? It is clearly visible for everyone because it's not on a Zoom, slide mode. What is the difference between tendinitis and tendinosis? Tendinitis, the duration is acute, whereas tendinosis is the long term. It's a chronic pathology. So from the duration itself, there it will be sudden, and the tendinosis is a long-term history. So from the pathology, what we can understand is the sudden aspect or sudden onset of the pain is there, and this is due to long-standing repetitive movement or repetitive trauma, repetitive cause is there. What will be the cause? Now, if it is a sudden, it can be some jerk, or it can be because of some sports activity where it is required a repetitive movement. In tendinosis, even though it's not a sports person, sometimes some housewife doing some action for few days. So it is an episodic repetitive movement. And what will be the common symptoms between and differentiation between tendinitis and tendinosis? Tendinitis is acute, so there will be inflammatory stage, whereas tendinosis is a chronic, so you will see more of a degenerative changes. There will be weakness, where here there will be pain. The pain will be intensity of the pain will be more in tendinitis, whereas in tendinosis, intensity of the pain is like a dull, aching kind of a pain will be there. And what special test you can do to understand that tendinitis and tendinosis, both it will be the empty can test and painful arc test is for both tendinitis and tendinosis. Okay. So differentiation is also important, that it is, if it is a acute, then it is a inflammatory stage is there. But if it is a tendinosis, then it is a degenerative stage is there. So that differentiation also we should be able to understand. Similarly, like when we talk about supraspinatus, it is also, we should not forget about bicipital tendinitis or bicep tendinitis. It is also called as tenosynovitis. Why it is called as? You might have heard this name at somewhere else also. Can anyone tell me example of tenosynovitis?
Decurven.
Yes, Decaven also is named as tenosynovitis. So Decaven is also one. So why they have written the tenosynovitis? So the capsule or the fibers which are covering that tendon is called as the synovium fibers or synovial capsules. So if you can see in this particular image over here, this bicipital tendon is being covered with this particular band, and that is why it is tenosynovitis is called. And tenosynovitis is again inflammation and irritation of that particular bicep tendon. Now, most important, that bicep tendinitis is never, you will not see bicep tendinitis only. It is very rare to find out only bicep tendinitis. So it will be also having some other allied symptoms. It can be painful arc syndrome, or it can be arthritis of that particular shoulder joint, or it can be some or the other way, rotator cuff tear, rotator cuff involvement. It will be there. So tendinitis can be sudden, serious load on the tendon or repetitive overhead motion. For example, baseball players, swimmers, tennis players, all that golf player, they might get this bicipital tendinitis. Now, what is the difference between supraspinatus tendinitis and the bicipital tendinitis? Supraspinatus tendinitis is specifically located on the shoulder and up to the arm. But when you look at the bicipital tendinitis, it is going, or it will be, you can feel the pain which is going on the arm, and it is going up to the lower half of the arm as well, because the bicep tendon is originating and insertion is over here. So what all test we can? So that is the site of the pain and the range of movement when we are doing for the bicipital tendinitis. If we are suspecting, then the range of movement we need to check for the shoulder, and we also need to check for the elbow, because bicep is also see this particular activity, or we say when you want to do biceps, what exercises you are doing in the gym? Dumbbells mein how you are doing? Like this, I see dumbbells. So this is a bicep for that you are doing it. So range of the motion, you need to not only check for the shoulder, but you need to check for the elbow also. And then you need to check for the strength of the other structures. Sometimes bicep muscle is being used more because there is a weakness in the deltoid muscle or other allied muscles or rotator cuff tendons. And there are two specific tests, speed test and the Yergason's test. Now, what is the speed test? Speed test is something patient is asked, because you do just remember that we are doing this exercise like this. So patient is asked to keep the hand in this particular range, and then we are supposed to tell him that you forcefully do flexion of the elbow. But if they find a pain while doing flexion, there is a pain over here in the bicipital groove, then that is a positive sign for the bicipital tendinitis. At the same time, Yergason test is something where you ask a patient to flex the elbow like this, and then you have to tell the patient to do pronation, because it is this is in the prone position and you need to do it supination. So you have to tell the patient to do supination. This is prone supination, understand? So some movement is happening at the shoulder also. So this is what we are doing to understand the bicep tendinitis. And if there is a repetitive stress on the bicep tendon, then the bicep rupture can be there. So bicep rupture sign is Popeye sign. Have you? How many of you remember that cartoon Popeye? He eats that spinach and immediately he gets over here. That bulge you see like this, he does like this, and you see over here. That is a Popeye sign. That bulge is there. So now, what will be the treatment, line of treatment for this tendinitis? What you will advise? What principle you will follow for the tendinitis? Yes, what principle you will follow for the tendinitis, and what principle you will follow for the tendinosis? If there is a tendinitis, more or less there is an inflammation. Inflammation might be less as compared to the subacromial bursitis, but there will be definitely inflammation is there. So again, involvement of the tendon. Again, think about the upadhatu of rakta dhatu. So rakta prasadan we have to do over here, because specifically that is repetitive action is there. Then vata shamana we have to do, because if you see overuse activity, initially there is a rakta and vata involvement, and later on it is only vata. Okay. So initially we need to do rakta prasadan, vata shamana chikitsa we have to do, and later on there is only vata. So tendinitis to tendinosis is something vata to vata shamana, and then a punarbhava rejuvenation chikitsa. We have to reach up to that particular level. Okay, we cannot just leave it like give shamana chikitsa and then leave it henceforth. So what all can be this for in this kind of a cases? What all will be the rasayana chikitsa? Rasayana chikitsa. What you can advise as a rasayana chikitsa? Because medicines, we know that tendinitis, we can use the same number of drugs what we have used for the subacromial bursitis. If there is too much of inflammation, too much of swelling is there, then we will go for the LEPA. We might not need to go for the LEPA, but at least you will advise some medication. So what you will advise medication which will be similar to the line of principle of subacromial bursitis. What is the rasayana chikitsa you can advise in this kind of cases? Tendinosis, tendinitis, what kind of a rasayana chikitsa?
Shirabala.
Yes, internally Kshirbala, Gandha Tailam is there. Okay, if a patient tells you, I don't want to take any internal medication, what you will do rasayana? How you will do rasayana? External oil applications which are rasayana properties, which have a balya, bruhana, that are rasayana for them, right? External oil applications. So tendinitis line of treatment is some or less like subacromial bursitis. But for tendinosis, what will you do?
Dhara. Dhara.
Dhara. So basically over here, madam is saying to do dhara. So dhara is one indication. So what we are doing, the degenerative structures we want to strengthen. So internal medication will also be on the same principle of balya bruhana. So Vidaryadi Kashayam we can use, Dhanvantaram Kashayam we can use, where it has got a gamitva towards the Astimajja gamitva is there. Vidaryadi Kashayam for the Bruhana we can do. So likewise you can use the Kashayam. But usually in the Vata Vyadi, we should not use Kashayam for longer period. Initially for Dipan Pachan you can use Kashayam. Once there is a Dipan Pachan done, then for the Shamana purpose we can go for the Balarishtam, Dhanvantararishtam, Ashwagandha Rishtam are there, that we can use along with that. Of course we can do some Kshirabala 101 is there, Gandha Tailam 101 is there. If it is too much of degenerative changes is there, then we can go for some external procedures. But in case those who are not able to go for the external procedures, definitely we can go for the tissue bandaging. Tissue bandaging video, I will demonstrate it in the next lecture, or like the injury management lectures. But tissue bandaging we can do, and that helps to that also works on the principle of Dhara. So after this, the next is calcific deposits in the supraspinatus. This many of you might have seen, many of you might have not seen the calcified deposits in the supraspinatus. So when there is a calcified deposits in the supraspinatus, who are at the higher risk of this, that like the age group of 40 to 60, more of a woman than the men. Why? Because women have a repetitive activity. Of course, now very few female are going into the kitchen and doing cooking every day. But because of this repetitive stirring movement, the women are more exposed as compared to the male. And this calcific deposit, now most important thing you need to know is like it will heal by its own. Body has a self-healing tendency. So if there is anywhere foreign particle, they reabsorbs that foreign particle. So why I am telling you, because patient will ask, doctor ये जो यहाँ पे जो हड्डी बढ़ गए हैं ना, उसको निकालना पड़ेगा या कैसे होगा? So you should be knowing the answer that okay, it heals by itself, but after how many days, after how many years, after how many months, that we will see, of course. So this is important that for calcific deposit, if you want to diagnose, of course, you will get it in the X-ray only. And what are the cause for this? Aging and wear and tear leads to the calcific tendinitis. So stages of the calcific tendinitis. Why I am telling you this? Because you understand that okay, whenever patient is telling that ये हड्डी को निकालना पड़ेगा क्या, तो we need to know this. There are three stages is there. The pre-calcific stage, where there will be a cellular changes in that area due to repetitive stress and the trauma on that area. And when that is healing, that fiber is healing, they will start forming they will start releasing the calcium in that area to that particular micro injury to that muscle fibers. And when they are healing during that particular phase, you will see the calcification. And then post calcific stage is there, where the deposits are replaced by the healthy tissue and the range of movement is improved. So definitely initial stage, because there is some micro injury, there will be range restriction will be there. Then there will be some discomfort while doing certain angle there. When you see, or patient will not come to you in the first stage, they usually come to you in the second stage, that now pain is not that excruciating, because each and every patient has a habit of doing a self treatment. Like they will do some massage, they will do some oil application, they will do some hot fermentation, they will do some cold fermentation, so massage. After that, the intense pain is reduced, but then still there is some angle pain, some pain is there in some particular angle or activity. And then they feel, oh, I need to go and check with the doctor that is there anything serious. So they will come into a calcification stage, where you can get a diagnosis of the calcific deposit in the shoulder, in that particular supraspinatus tendon or bicipital tendon is there. And so that then you need to tell the patient that okay, it will get resolved also, because the moment there is some deposit, for them it is a bone growth. What will be the line of treatment in this kind of a cases? So if you look at here, this is a white formation. Now I have heard few of the L Mahadevan sir's lecture, and in that, like from the X-ray, which dosha is there, you can make out. So if the bone shadow is normal, and if you see the karshanyatva, so if shadow is getting more intense and black, that is because of the vata dosha. Likewise, if there is the kapha dosha is moved from its place and it has got stagnant at its unusual place, and that is why there is a white shadow present in your X-ray. So here you will plan a line of treatment which is Ushna Chikitsa. So again, for the Pachana, you can go for the Lepa Chikitsa. So what Lepa Chikitsa you will do over here? Which Lepa you can select? Which is Ushna Viryatva, Kottam Chukadi. What Kashayam you can select? Ashtavarga Kashayam, because it is Ushna in Ushna. Ashtavarga Kashayam. What Gugula you can select? Either Yogaraj Gugul. Can anyone tell me one more Kashayam which is Ushna Virya?
गुगुल तिक्त
Yogaraj
कषाय
Gugul. Ha. Gugulu Tiktak Kashayam. Gugulu Tiktak Kashayam. Gugulu works more on the Vata, and Tiktak Kashayam is Pitta Shamana. It is Ushna. Yogaraj Gugul, Trayodashang Gugul, because Yogaraj Gugul, Trayodashang Gugul has a Pachana, Deepana Pachana in it. Now, if you see Ashtavarga Kashayam, why specifically I have written Ashtavarga Kashayam over here? Because Ashtavarga Kashayam, the Gamitva is Urdhva Jatrugat Gamitva. If you refer Sahastra Yogam, you can see the Falashruti. You can go for Prasaranyadi Kashayam, because in Prasaranyadi Kashayam also, it is a case of Avrana. Ashtavarga Kashayam also works good in the Avrana because Kapha dosha has gone somewhere else. Similarly, Kapha has got Avran because of the Vat, something like that. You can see the pathology. Likewise, in the Prasaranyadi Kashayam also, there is a Kshira, but at the same time, there is a Lasun also in that. So similarly, it will help to break the Avrana. So Prasaranyadi Kashayam also you can go over here. Now, Trayodashang Gugul, Yogaraj Gugula are for Deepan Pachan, but the Gamitva is also important. Trayodashang Gugula, if you see the Falashruti, more or less it has got a Falashruti of a Graha when there is a like restriction is there. Now, stiffness, I know that there are some people who say that the stiffness, so stiffness can be because of Kapha and stiffness can be because of the Vata. When Kapha is depleting, there will be stiffness because they are giving free movement, and Shita Guna of a Vata is increasing, or Ruksha Guna, sorry, when Shita Guna of a Kapha is increasing, there is a stiffness, and when Ruksha Guna of a Vata is increasing, still there is a stiffness. So you need to differentiate both the Graha over there. So Yogaraj Gugul, Trayodashang Gugul is usually a choice of drug in that kind of a cases. Anything else, then Rasayana Chikitsa, of course, we have to go for again that if it falls under any joint involvement and the pain falls under a Vata Vyadhi. So definitely we can go for a Rasayana with the help of internal Sneha, like Kshirbala 101, Gandhatailam 101, KG 101, that all we can go for it. Anyone has any question in this? Now, calcific tendinitis treatment, now most important part of the treatment is not just prescribing medicine, but at the same time advising non-pharmacological advice. And these are very important to get the results within few days. So in any cases of impingement, avoid overuse of the shoulder joint, advise on the exercise, because patient thinks I have got pain in the shoulder joint, so I will start doing exercise, yoga. हाथ दुख रहा था मैंने योगा चालू किया, हाथ दुख रहा था मैंने exercise करना चालू किया. So you have to advise on the exercise, that whether they are supposed to do exercise or whether you are not supposed to do exercise. And then fermentation, hot fermentation, cold fermentation, what are they supposed to do? For example, in the case of calcific tendinitis, you will advise hot fermentation. But in the case of subacromial bursitis or tendinitis, you might advise cold fermentation, ice application. Or why I say ice application? Because see, if you see the Shushrutacharya, they have clearly mentioned that after some sudden injury, sudden trauma, we are supposed to do first Shita Parishechan and then we are supposed to go for the Vata Shamana. So Shita Parishechan is like, it's not necessary that every time we advise, give something to apply. Sometime we have to think from the patient user-friendly point of view also, that okay, they can apply cold fermentation. So initially, any which ways we need to do Rakta Prasadana and we don't want more inflammation. So that ice application is better option in that. Don't slip on affected shoulder. Don't slip directly below the fan, fan or AC, because that Shita Guna might increase the stiffness of the shoulder joint, and that can lead to the restriction of the ranges. Don't do pulling, jerking, jarring movement of the shoulder joint. For example, like walking your dog, you're playing some contact sports like judo, karate, all that kind of a sports. You are supposed to advise them on that particular also, because sometime what happen, you are giving them medicine and not advising on the movement activities, you will not get the results. So was your prescription wrong? No, you only forgot, or you only failed to advise on the non-pharmacological important advice. And at the same time, we need to also keep it in the mind that what are the shoulder impingement risk factors. So these are few sports like swimming, baseball, volleyball, tennis, and then the few jobs: construction, painting, washing windows, hanging wallpapers, and drywalls are few jobs where the shoulder impingement, or where shoulder is at risk of the impingement. So you need to advise on that particular job and that particular sports also when a patient comes with the shoulder joint pain. Now, I think this was the last slide. My question is, after finishing or after going through entire slides, what is the difference between frozen shoulder and shoulder impingement? I've already discussed in the presentation. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful session. Thanks to all of you for listening so patiently. आपके किसी के कोई भी डाउट है तो वो आप पूछ सकते हैं.
What is the difference between frozen shoulder and shoulder impingement? The one difference, all of you remember that we need to categorize whether it is a shoulder impingement or frozen shoulder. Frozen shoulder patients, I hope I'm visible, right? Rajat
Yes,
sir?
yes.
So in frozen shoulder, patients' range of restriction in terms of active and passive both will be restricted. And in shoulder impingement cases, patients' active range of restriction is there, but the passive range of restriction will not be there. So for example, in the shoulder impingement, when you tell to do patient do movement flexion, they will be able to do this much, or they will able to do this much. But when you are doing it with the support, then patient will be able to take it complete, or patient will be able to do a complete flexion or complete abduction. But in case of the adhesive capsulitis, if you are trying to do the movement, then beyond certain degree, patient's structure will start changing and there will be a movement which is happening at the scapula. Got it? So this is the main difference. Yes, anyone has any question they can ask? Because I have already taken more than an hour for today.
ओके मैम. मैम, आज का सेशन यहीं पे समाप्त करते हैं. आप में से किसी का कोई भी डाउट है तो आप ग्रुप पे डाल दीजिएगा, वहां पे आंसर दे दिया जाएगा. थैंक यू.
Okay.
नेक्स्ट वीक.
यस, आज के प्रेजेंटेशन में ट्रीटमेंट मैंने स्लाइड्स में पर्पसफुली नहीं डाले हैं. ट्रीटमेंट आई विल राइट एंड देन आई विल शेयर अ पीडीएफ सो दैट ऑल ऑफ यू कैन गो थ्रू और ऑल ऑफ यू कैन रेफर इट.
ओके मैम, थैंक यू.
Thank you, ma'am.
हैव अ नाइस डे.